The U.S. House of Representatives passed legislation that would ban transgender women and girls from competing in female school sports. Republicans are calling this a win for women's rights, but opponents say this legislation targets people and is discriminatory. The bill, called the Protection of Women's and Girls in Sports Act, passed on a 219 to 203 vote. The legislation would amend Title IX to prohibit schools that receive federal funding from allowing people, and quoting from the legislation, whose sex is male, end quote, to participate in sports designated for women or girls. The bill defines sex as based solely on a person's reproductive biology and genetics at birth. Representatives Claudia Tenney and Nick Langworthy both voted yes on this legislation. Tenney, who represents parts of Western New York, was one of the co-sponsors of this legislation. In a press release following the vote, she said, part, quote, "The Biden administration is allowing, even encouraging, biological men to participate in women's sports. This is fundamentally unfair and diminishes equal opportunities for women in athletics, which we fought for decades to achieve," end quote. The legislation is getting pushback from Democrats, saying this is the latest attempt by Republicans to intensify culture wars and transgender rights in America. But Republicans see this as a win for women's rights.
House Republicans are standing up for people who just believe in basic fairness. And today's vote should have been a unanimous vote. Yet, regardless of what political games people play up here, when people go back home and they're in their schools, they're competing, they just want to compete on a level playing field.
Let's not kid ourselves that the very intent is to harm and stigmatize, isolate, make them pariahs, and this is simply wrong.
Even though this passed the Republican-controlled House, the legislation has no chance in the slim Democratic majority-controlled Senate.